Hi, this is AnnRenee.
And Gwen Girl.
Welcome to another episode of the AHA podcast.
Yup.
We're so glad you joined us. Today we are talking Malcolm and Marie, a relatively new film on Netflix that has just blown us away. And
Absolutely.
so Gwen Girl and I are going to jump right in very quickly. Malcolm and Marie focuses on a director and his girlfriend's relationship, which is tested after they return home from his movie premiere and
Hmm.
await critics' responses. It
Okay.
stars only John David Washington and Zendaya. And it's directed by Sam
Zendaya. Boom, boom,
Livingston. I know
boom.
I went a little
Zendaya.
hard with that
Yeah.
Zendaya.
Zendaya. Boom, 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 boom,
Zendaya.
boom, boom. Right? I heard the drums. I don't know about you
Right.
guys.
All
Yeah.
right, Gwen Girl.
Okay, all right, so cool, cool. So I'm so glad we just had that one liner in terms of that because it's a great setup for where I think we should go with this. So my first impression of the movie out of the gate, it's black and white, glossy matte finish, which I know are total opposites, but that's how it occurred to my mind. There were shiny things in a matte kind of background. But anyway, you see headlights of a car, coming down the highway, and I'm immediately thrown into a '60s kind of movie, '50s, maybe late
Mhm.
'50s, early '60s or something. And I'm like, okay, and I'm not even aware really that it's the thing that's attracting me is the black and white. I just know it's something different from what I'm used to viewing. And then they walk into the house, and Zendaya, if I got that right, she's strutting like a supermodel, and he follows behind. Malcolm follows behind her, and so immediately you pick up tension. You're not exactly sure what's going on, but it seems like something's about to pop off.
Right.
So yeah, yeah. So I'm like, okay, all right, what's happening here? Malcolm puts on music, and I'm just setting the stage for this conversation. He puts on music and he starts grooving, and she goes and she sits on the toilet. Now, for me, that brought me into my younger days. I immediately, without knowing anything about this script, I know that he is excited and triumphant about something, and she has been bitch slapped. All I'm serious. Like, see, I know this move. It's like she's been, you got to resign yourself to the toilet because you got to gather yourself. You got to
Right. You
release
need a
some
minute. I
stuff.
need a minute.
I need a minute because, I mean, I got to sit on the throne that I own right now and I just get my mind right. And so he puts on some James Brown. And sidebar, the music in this film, if you would, is a script unto itself. The music really
Yeah, it's
is
another character.
absolutely. I just love AnnRenee. Yeah, the music is another character. And so it's interesting when you see the particular character, new character, by way of the music enter the room. And so he's doing James Brown. I don't know the name of the tune, but he's talking about give me a dime boy, for a shine boy. It's just like, um, just yeah, this is something I could do. This, I can get this. I can get somebody to wait on me, serve me, kind of thing. And so the brother jumps into the windowsill and he starts to catwalk it, and I'm just like, oh my god, he's high. He's high off of this moment. We still don't know what's happening. And then she comes out of the bathroom and goes for the pots, which is a bit odd because you're going to cook. The way they were dressed and his level of energy, taking out a tiny pot, to cook is just off to me. And so then I immediately realized she's getting ready to serve somebody. Now I didn't think it was him, but she's going for his I'm going to say his favorite dish. And so I'm checking her out as a woman. So she's been bitch slapped by this man. He is, I'm thinking, oblivious of how she's feeling. And now she's getting ready to do an act of submission to show him. And it's manipulation to me, because she's getting ready to show him that in spite of whatever this thing is that we don't know about yet, I'm that good. I'm that loving. I'm that caring that I can look out for you even when I feel like you didn't look out for me. And you can jump in there if you got any comments about that, because I'm telling you that was my. I'm putting it all together before I even knew, what the female infraction was for her, and and it was familiar to me. But go ahead.
I Up to this point, I think a couple of things. One, that whole scene was familiar to me. In fact, the moment they walked in the house without knowing anything else, I was like, just like you, something is about to pop off. Number one, uh, and two, about 4 minutes in, this is all too familiar.
Yes.
I knew the beginnings of whatever was to come without knowing what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
fact, as they started to start conversation, which you're right up against now with the cooking, I kept saying out loud, just take a shower and go to bed. Just take a shower and go to bed
Please.
because this is nothing good is going to come out of this.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like when the old folks say nothing good can happen past 2 in the morning. We're way
yeah, and
past
I
two.
think it was, certainly was after one because they
Yeah.
mentioned the time a couple of times.
Hmm.
So like you, yeah, I was like, okay, this will not end well,
Right.
whatever
Right.
this is. So yeah.
Yeah. So then we were at this point brought into conversation about what this is, all of this energy that we're sensing and tensing up in our own homes while we're viewing it. We find out that at this premiere, he forgot to thank Marie.
Mhm.
And Marie is his his woman, his confidant, his support dog, all of these things. And he forgets to thank her. And so she has internalized this, I guess, in several different ways. But this is where the nice nasties start. And so, yeah,
In and in.
yeah, right, 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 right. And so now we get to see that there's I don't want to call it control rage. Maybe it was a semi-quiet anger that Marie is playing with. And so then it kind of puts Malcolm in the place where it lands on him what she's saying. He goes into this immediate deflective posture and just kind of like like we do. It's like when we're really caught, so he's throwing things back and forth at her. And she's I'm watching him, and to me, I get the sense that not only did he understand what he did, it wasn't a slip. I felt like it was an intentional slight.
Mm.
It was all eyes on him. And I don't know, to bring her into the dynamic might have taken some of the attention off of him, because he really felt, just the way he.
Well, let me ask you about
But
that right before you move on. Because did you think that in the initially or as you watched through the film?
I'm going to say I thought it initially, because my experience with this sort of situation, there's no way in the world you could forget that. These are the kinds of things that are pretty much said during the process. So, say you just helped your man get through some things at work, and so all along the way, as you're helping them, you get to hear, you know damn, babe, I don't know what, I couldn't have done this without you, thank you so much. Nobody's ever been ride or die with me like that. I mean, that's my experience. So you get that along the way. And so then when you get the moment, it's just It is impossible in my mind. It is impossible to forget how you got to that moment. Because even leading up to that premiere, and this is my imagination. Being in the house, you know why you're here. You know why the film has finally gotten done. You know what it took. And so I just, unless you're some kind of narcissist, and I do believe she called him a narcissist somewhere in there, you can't forget that. You can't forget that. And so then when it's all eyes on me, sometimes we go into, I deserve this, all the work I put into it, dot, 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 dot. And and maybe this is just me. I just don't think that you can be so tone deaf to what it took, and so when you choose not to honor those, in any way, shape, or form that you could not have done it without, I think it's an intentional slight. And let me say this, I don't mean a slight as let me slap you down, dog. It's all about me right now. And I kind of felt like I don't know, it's his energy. He was comfortable, confident, cocky, all of it. And it just, that it didn't seem like a man that could have forgotten that. It just,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to, do I agree, disagree? How am I feeling about it?
awesome
Because
it.
I think it could be that you are one that tone deaf. I'm just going to say that.
Wow.
I think he may have intentionally slighted her too with not thanking her. But just to go back on what you said, I do think there are people who can just be that tone deaf.
Mm,
Um, for
horrible.
so yeah, horrible as it may be, I think they exist. But there was something about his movement, even coming in, being jubilant and getting a drink and turning the music up, and that
It's
he
over the top.
knew too something was going to pop off. And I bet it was not far from his mind that
I
she was
agree.
going to say something about having not been acknowledged.
I agree. I
Though
agree.
he totally seemed to be completely caught off guard, and he couldn't believe it on the best night of his life. How dare she come up with all this mess when a man is trying to enjoy his success? Brother, you knew. You were riding home in that car. I'm going to use my creative imagination. You were riding home in that car, and she was probably stone silent or giving you one word answers.
Oh my God, right?
Do you knew?
Unless she was, because there's a thing that women do, and I hate to say that I've not, I've been one to do some of the same things. It's you have these it's moments of clarity, and sometimes the truth is so loud and glaring. It's like you have a moment of clarity, like he finally said it, or he finally did the thing that you knew. Like if you had drawn your own invisible line in the sand, it's like, well, I've gone through this, I've gone through that, da da da. But if he ever dot 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 dot, I'm going to leave, whatever that fill in the blank thing is. And then they've done that fill in the blank thing, and your words come back to haunt you, and you're looking, you have this moment, it's like, you know what? I gotta drop this nigga. Oops, I need that edited out. I need to drop this man. And the reality sets in because you're clear. You're in alignment with what you said was a bridge too far and all of that. And then all of a sudden your emotions come in. And now you've got to find a way to still be able to stay, because if you really don't want to go, but he's filled in the blank, now you've got to do something different. So do I fight? Do I take flight? All of that. And so that's what I kind of saw. Like, she could have just been really quiet and pretended she was tired, because I've done it. It's just like, I'm just tired.
Yeah,
It's
she
a
didn't
long
walk
night.
in that house like I've been pretending I'm tired.
Yeah,
I agree with what you're saying. I mean,
wait,
I can appreciate what you're saying, but I'm talking about the ride in the car. She walked in the house like she had been booted up, as we used to say, for quite some time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just
all
like
of
you
that.
said, she was strutting like and she was a model. Yeah. Yeah, he
But
knew.
but you heard me though. She was on the runway. Literally, that was the flight thing. She probably had planned. I'm telling you, it's like I'm just gonna pack my shit. I'm out. That's how she strutted in there. And then when she sat on
Oh
the
no, see,
throne,
I didn't see that at all. She
oh,
she to me she walked in like, yeah, we gonna get down tonight. Oh, she wasn't walking out. Oh no, not before I cuss you out.
now I'll go with that. I'll go with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that was no flight. That wasn't
Yeah.
let me go to the bathroom, pack my bag, and I'm out of here. No, it's
Mhm.
like, Negro, you gonna know what's on my mind
I know that's
tonight.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but and so as the movie developed, we keep seeing these opportunities for both of them to fight in. They both fought very dirty with one another, um, and they both had different needs. And so with Marie, she wanted validation from him about her contribution. Well, I'll change that. It was her contribution to the film, the material, because she said that she was the material. He had gleaned, that film was born out of, her life, this, that, and the other. And so that's the way it's like, you could have thanked me for, being the material for that. But that to me was, even though that was major, that was more surface. To me, it was she needed they were so codependent to me, so she needed him to reassure her of her value. Is the way I picked up on it. And you know and when she's going at him, she's talking like, well, I know my value, I just needed you to recognize me. But then I didn't feel like that was authentic, because there was a lot of just mind games. There was a tub scene where he just took off the gloves, and she did this smile thing, which was more effective than 1,000 words at that point, because she saw how vulnerable and unsure he was, even though he came in with a verbal knife to her throat to just kind of stop the madness, stop telling me that I've done this big slight to you. Stop telling me that if it wouldn't be for you, I wouldn't have had this great script. And he started trying to demean her and everything, and she just did this smile like, you silly ass. You and I both know that everything I said was true. And so it was interesting watching him go from arrogant and cocky and demeaning to not sure. And so she kind of had him on the rails at that point, and they kept going through that. It was that kind of dance, for a better part of the movie. So you got you got a chance to see the insecurities of both of them. To me, you got a chance to see how codependent they were on one another. It was I thought it was good to see Malcolm. There were a couple of times that you saw him actually crying, but he didn't. He didn't come off as a weak man. He came off as emotional, and I love that, because I do love a man that can cry. That doesn't make a man weak to me. It makes him human. It makes him, to me, being a person who is not afraid to be in touch with his feelings. So I love all of that. So it was an emotional roller coaster, and a lot of those things, for me, looking at them, I saw things that I did younger that would have been done so differently at this age and stage. And I know I said a lot, so I don't know if you want to jump in on anything.
Um, I looked up codependent because I never that didn't land on me
Hmm.
as I was watching it, and so I looked it up as you were speaking. A person who is codependent will plan their entire life around pleasing the other person or the enabler. In its simplest terms, a codependent relationship is when one partner needs the other partner, who in turn needs to be needed. So that's kind of an apt description of what we saw
Yeah,
on screen. Oh,
I
I
would
was just
say
saying, I was like, it never landed on me as codependent. Let me
it
just take a
did.
look. And I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of it.
Hashtag, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
that's interesting, because in my lower vocabulary, I was thinking they're both right about being so incredibly wrong.
I like that.
That's yeah, that's the way they came through to me. It's not what I believe them to be true and authentic about 90% of the time, and what they were saying to each other, even if it was vicious. And there
Mhm.
was some moments when it was just vicious. I'm 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 my purpose is to cut you and make you bleed. Uh, but I thought they were also being true and authentic in what they were saying. I just don't think they were being true, real, factual. It was something else was missing,
Mhm.
that they weren't saying.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I got that really through the entire film.
Mhm.
That my suggestion would be you guys get together and go get therapy,
Yeah.
because there was some underlying resentment there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so that was the only it was the only thing, those kinds of conversations I too am familiar with, where it's no longer. And I just wanted to say this: there were several sort of blocks. We
Mm.
had the moment in the open room, the family room, the living room.
Mhm.
Then the move conversation would move to the bedroom.
Yeah.
Then there was the conversations in the bathroom. So there
Mhm.
is all of these
On the
conversations.
patio,
Yeah, on the
there was
patio. Well, again, it's just the two of them, and
mhm.
it's hitting on different issues.
Mhm. Mhm.
In
Mhm.
terms of one, it was the sexualization of Amani, and I may be misremembering the character's name in the film. So it was all of these various conversations. So it was a long night for
Right.
them and us
Right. Right. And right.
watching it.
Right.
But
And I
that
want to go back
punching,
to
yeah, I
yeah.
just wanted to say there were moments as I was listening uh, to the conversations and the intensity of the arguments, and it was like I was verbalizing like, oh, oh, that one's going to stick. That one, no matter how many times you say you're sorry, he's never going to forget that, or she's never going
Right.
to forget that, because that
And
those were some tough blows they were throwing.
right. Right.
Particularly there was a line when she said something about his mediocre, something about elevating his mediocre. I don't know if she used the term his mediocre work ass or what, but I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, all he
Yeah.
will hear is the word mediocre.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
was gonna come back on that. Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause I
the
have that down.
conversations
Mhm.
were, and they were hitting hard at some point, and I think they stopped trying to even communicate as much as they wanted to hurt.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was something else that registered with me, is that the hurt had to be part of the conversation, because no one was going to listen until both were bloody. Yeah, there
Wow,
was
that's
going to
a
have to be a
visual.
beating, a bleeding, and then some listening, in that
Yeah.
order.
Right. 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 Yeah. And so back in the day, that would end up being makeup sex. But I'll come
Which I
back to
fully expected.
right. Right. So I wanted to address what you said about there was a truth that had not been spoken, and I want to tie that into the ferociousness of the fighting. So what I saw was fear on both sides, and what I think the truth of all of this, the underlying truth, was I think they both knew how dependent they were on one another and did not want to maybe just wrap their minds around what that all looked like. For her, not being thanked, answered the fear of, I'm gonna say in my mind, so has he gotten all out, all of what he wanted and needed out of me, with this film. Is there now nothing left? And at one point, when they were arguing about this whole thank you, not thank you, and how he doesn't forget to remember others, and just so single-handedly forgot about her that night. um she's in a position where you're a spiritual fraud, because what's going to be your next thing? That's how she started challenging him. What's going to be your next thing? You don't have the depth to do that, and that's when it got into the mediocrity and all of that, because she's just like, I was your muse. This is my life. Could you have, written something as beautiful and dot, 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 and so for her, again, me just kind of being in her role, she's not an addict anymore, and the film was about an addict and all of that. She's clean now, but she's still clinging, in a lot of ways to him. She was an aspiring actress. It doesn't appear that based on the conversation, that she's still pursuing acting. She was offended by being referred to as a model, which it seemed in the context that it was said by one of his friends, it was, it meant she was just a face, a body, no real depth to her. So I think that was one of her fears. And for him, I think his fear was, can I really do this? Because when he did his teardown scene, he talked about the film wasn't about her. It was an amalgamation of his experiences. I believe he mentioned two women that he had dealt with that were addicts, and I tabbed that because that was interesting. Because I was wondering why he was attracted to addicts in his women, and especially someone who was struggling to break through in the industry. Life with anybody that has any kind of addiction can be very draining. It just takes a lot out of you. And so to say he was, in the struggle of trying to make it, takes a lot to take on these people that you have to, pour so much into, and then you're trying to achieve this other life. So, I didn't make the connection with him being, he seemed like he was, I don't know, maybe a knight in shining armor for addicts. And based on what she said about his family, he didn't come from that kind of background. So I don't know what that place of attraction slash brokenness was in him. But I
I
know
think
that,
he needed to be needed too.
ah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Just like
Well,
the
just put that in a
codependency
nutshell. Yeah.
that I just read. She needed to be needed, but he needed to be needed too.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. So I think
So
that
you
was.
find these broken people in whatever areas they're broken because they'll need you.
And I think that was the truth they were both afraid to deal with, because it was a truth that only they could embrace for themselves, and it probably was frightening. And I mean, looking at the home and everything, it looked, I mean, it was gorgeous. So I mean, it seemed like he had broken through, financially and all of that. But he was, you know what I'm saying? He had all of the trimmings of a successful career unfolding, if you would. We don't know what she had, except for, I mean, he told her um, that she was denigrating the moment in just framing herself as an emotional support dog for him for the last 5 years. And then that went into a dialogue about, why didn't you fight for me? And she's like, you fight for everything else, anything you want, you really want. Why didn't you fight for me? And she was talking about in terms of being cast as the lead, in the story of her life, basically. And I thought that was interesting, because this was based on what she believed. It was not only a story inspired by her life, it was the story of her life. And that she knew she could bring, just really the fire to it, because I mean, hell, I lived this. So I know the rawness of the feelings, this, that, and the other. And we were led to understand that when she did her, what do you call it?
Audition.
Yeah, when she did her audition, it wasn't good. And then right before our very eyes and his, she sets up the audition of a lifetime. It's so well done that you don't even know that's what she's doing. You're thinking she's having some sort of drug addict, psychopathic break or
No, I
whatever.
did know she was auditioning.
I didn't. I
Oh
didn't. I
yeah, as
saw.
soon as she got that knife, I
I
was like,
missed it.
okay, she's
I
about
missed
to
it.
show him that she
I
can do
missed
it.
it. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna truthfully put out there the reason why I miss that is because I've done a little violence in my days. Let me just say it like that. I've done a little violence in my days. I am of the school of thought that um, you don't play you don't play with guns and knives and things like that when you're in heated situations with people, because I give people the grace of believing that if you picked it up, you're prepared to use
To
it.
use it, yeah.
Yeah, and so I truly respected the game. So I didn't know. I was looking at, like I said, controlled anger or whatever. They had gone several different places, and I just kind of felt like she did not know her worth or value. So I didn't know she was auditioning. I mean, I thought she was
Yeah.
lying and
See, I didn't think
manipulating.
she didn't know her worth of value. I think she wanted him to know it, but she wasn't confident enough. See that whole thing
I don't
about
understand that.
the
Explain that.
auditioning? And then he said, "Well, why didn't you do that in the audition?" That it was a
That's what she said, because I wanted you to fight for me or something
yeah,
like that. And
but you fight
it's
for
like,
yourself.
fight for your damn self. Don't lay
Yeah,
at
so
his
I'm
feet.
just saying, I don't think she wasn't aware of her worth. I don't know that she had gotten in the practice of fighting for her worth or making her own stand. And there were a couple of times, even at the beginning, when I thought, oh, this is going to so irritate me. If it's going to be about how he doesn't love her, validate her,
Yeah.
acknowledge her, and look at all she's done for him, and I cook your food, I take your clothes to the cleaners, I make a home, you
Hmm.
don't thank me. I just didn't want any of that.
Yeah, I got you. True,
So in
true
the
that.
beginning, I was already thinking, oh, please don't lay that crap at that man's feet.
Hmm. Hmm.
You cannot be walked on if you do not lay down.
Mm.
So I just, so I was very happy throughout that, even though it was a bloody fight, she at least fought.
Mhm, mhm,
That
mhm,
she was standing up for herself and she was throwing some punches as well as she was receiving some.
mhm, mhm.
So I think that's why I think, a lot of what they said, it was true, that that she didn't stand up for herself, that she didn't bring all that energy to the audition. Uh, Thank me because of what I've done for you to help you get here. So I'm your inspiration, your muse.
Mhm.
I create a home. I cook. I'm your cook. I run your errands. I do all of these things. Well, how about taking some of that energy, Marie, and putting it into what is you want? I mean, I
Right.
still think that was a lot of laying some things at his feet. Now,
Mhm,
to turn around, he was an asshole. He was not very thoughtful or considerate.
mhm,
It seems like he could be very self-focused.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, and I think the what's the word I'm looking for? And as an artist, he's getting a breakthrough film. You are terrified because at first you're terrified it's not going to happen, and then when it happens, you're terrified that it was truly because of you. Was it your directing? Was it because you're pouring over the script? Was it all that you think you are that made it
Right.
happen? And will it happen again? So you're
Yeah.
terrified that it won't happen again. So her going after him as an artist, man, that was brutal. That was as brutal as that bathroom scene
Right.
when he talked about you weren't the first. drug addict girlfriend I ever had. You're not that it's special. If that's what makes you special, that
You're not
doesn't
that.
make you very
Yeah,
special.
you're not that
Yeah, you're
special,
not
right?
that special. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I just wanted to throw that in. It was for all of its intensity and brutality. At least I felt it were a fair fight.
Right, right, right. And so then they kind of get past this, and then there's the patio scene. And now because he was playing music throughout, which we said was the other characters. And so they're sitting on the patio, and she plays Get Rid of Him by Dionne Warwick. And he's looking, kind of crazy. And then she starts singing the part where Dionne Warwick says, I love him," and it's almost like she's mocking him. But it's interesting because they've had all of this. I mean, I don't think I could have recovered that quickly. I mean, we would have had to go straight from the nice, nasty, bloody bedroom. We could not have gone out, on the veranda, and just chill for a minute to let everything. And my intensity would have had to move from one to the other. And so there's like this cooling down period. And she's playfully, but I believe, very seriously, you know, e- saying, I love you, even though the chorus in the song is telling, the woman to get rid of him. He's not worth it. That you're not going to still consider him. And she's saying, but I love him. And so it kind of guilts him. And, he walks away. And then the next thing you know, they're talking about the review, because I think it had just come out. I don't
Hmm.
remember how he
Hmm.
saw that. And they're talking about the review, and now Marie is a different person. The mood is lighter, and she's listening to him. Um, he's talking about the things that the critic has said, and so she's got some little moments in there, whatever. They're back and forth, but then you can see they start with the makeup, the makeup scene. And he's talking about, how he feels about her and all of that. And, he's been waiting all night for this moment, but he's got to pee. He's like, I got to pee. And he's just like, I don't think he didn't say don't change or don't move.
Hmm.
I'm not exactly sure what he said, but I know he didn't want her energy to change, but he definitely had to pee. And I knew this moment also, because it's like in being in conflict in my mind about this thing that had happened between, me and my man, me and my husband or whatever, and maybe being able to push it away, push it down, whatever. I needed to be closer than close. And if there was anything that was going, the phone could have rang and it would have snapped me out of that moment. And so when he was telling her, just stay right here, keep it right here, don't move, don't change anything or whatever. I was saying to myself, you might want to pee on yourself, because if you move,
Yeah,
you lose, right?
yeah, yeah. The
And
dynamic will change.
right. And he had a sense of that. That's why he was so intense with that, because anybody's like, it's like 1 second, it would be right back. And they just would have kind of darted in and darted out. And so he's in the bathroom, door open, and she decides she wants to ask him a question. And I go, oh shit, here it is. And she's asking him a question. And then you see there's a tear, you know, um, rolling down her eye, like side of her face or whatever. And I so knew that moment too. And so even though she needed him to say something that would validate her in that relationship, just whatever she felt like she needed in the moment. I think the sadness for me in that moment was, what you need right now is to know who you are, not what he thinks you are, not, what I'm saying? It's like there's no explaining for the place she went. It was deeper than that moment to me. It is those times, when you're unsure and you're just looking, you may put all of that weight on somebody else. Just tell me I'm good enough. And just tell me you didn't mean it. Just tell me, when you're already pretty clear about some things in your own head. And the struggle is typically what you're clear about is inconvenient, you know. And so it may have been whatever was going on in her head. It may have been, I need to shut this down. I need to go to my own place. Oops, I don't have my own place. That kind of thing is like that. That's what I saw, because me being in a similar kind of position, I looked at all of the places that I was tied to and couldn't run from, in that moment. And so I was, waiting for him to say something that would help me pass through this moment of clarity that I'm having about myself, but that I've framed it as, some sort of victimization. So I was just like, oh God, here we go. And it turned into exactly what I felt it would turn into. She couldn't turn it off again. She couldn't. That moment required, truth in her inward man, if you would. It wasn't, I don't care what that man was going to say. It was not going to drown out the truth that she knew about herself in that moment. And even possibly their relationship.
Right. Yeah. I think that goes back to what I said about the beating, the bleeding, and then the listening.
Mm,
See, I never, as I was looking at it, and I was Marie, I would have never left that house because there had to be some sort of a conclusion to this chapter.
mhm,
So to run, to flee, never would have entered my mind. We are going
mhm,
to get this settled,
mhm.
or this will be settled to my satisfaction in some way,
Right.
because there was something she needed to hear. There was a lot she needed to say, and there was a lot she wanted understood. And so to leave in any way would have just postponed the conversation. So even as hard as it was, it had to be done. So
Mhm,
just, in that moment where maybe it had lightened a little bit and they could, com- um, converse and laugh a minute. Yeah, she was going to go right back to that place. It was too heavy on her.
mhm.
And I think coming in the door, she was probably at a good 770, let's just say. But with the continual conversation, yeah, she was bumping up against 100. And so even I would give the playfulness maybe at its lightest 90. But she was going to have that conversation.
Mm,
It had to be had. So I don't think she ever wanted to retreat,
mm,
no matter how hard it was. And even if the outcome was a splitting up, we're going to have this conversation tonight.
mm,
Uh, so yeah, I was feeling Marie in that moment. No matter
mhm,
what it takes, no matter how it hurts, no matter what is said, we gotta get to a point where I believe you've heard me, and more important, you've understood me.
understood, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
there
it.
has to be
Yeah,
some
you
understanding.
understand it. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so this really just brings us to a bedroom scene. Um, there is silence. There is soft spoken. I love you, Marie. I love you too, Malcolm, or something like that. And we we get the next morning. He wakes up.
Well. Before we move over to the next morning, when she goes into her monologue about what he should have said
Mhm,
to thank
mhm.
her and all the ways and reasons he should have thanked her, at the end he says, I love you.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm sorry. And it's not until after that he says, thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Those were the two of the hardest words Brother Malcolm could
Right.
speak.
Right. And the words he needed to say.
Yes.
The weight of the world was on those two words. Absolutely. Absolutely. So they go to sleep because they can't have makeup sex. I think the wounds are too raw. And he wakes up the next morning and she's not there. He's running, looking for her. And he finds her. They're overlooking whatever. I'm not sure because the house is located on in a hill somewhere or whatever. But they're looking out. It's a new day and their backs are to us, and it goes off. So it was. I don't know if that was supposed to speak to it's a new day, it's a new dawn, and I'm feeling good. Um,
Well, I think it was, we're going to continue. We're at least going to continue this conversation.
on
Not
that
as
relation.
intense, not as
Yeah,
bloody, but the conversation will continue. And by that, I mean the relationship will
absolutely,
continue.
absolutely. So I'm just gonna try and close with an aha for me, and all I can say is that oh my God, I am so much wiser now in relationships than I was at that age, and I know that owning your own power is the most important thing when you're trying to be empowered. Um, giving giving responsibility of yourself to others is never a good thing. It's never a good thing. Collaborating with others is a great thing, but giving yourself over in a way that you need them to validate who you are is never the strongest position you have, even on your weakest day. I think you need to always try and remember, who you are.
Mhm. Um, an aha moment. I guess first and foremost was the fact that that night was very familiar to me. And like Gwen Girl in my younger life. Uh,
Hmm.
Fun fact, I could not even argue that long in this in this
Oh my
stage and age.
God!
At this stage and age, I can't even
Right.
argue like that anymore. First of all, that was hours of arguing, so that's like work. That's exhausting. That's another thing I felt watching that film. I was like, at the end of it, I was emotionally exhausted.
Hmm.
So I can't even battle like that anymore. Not nor do I want to. But I do understand the need to get some things done, uh, to have what is, to to use almost a trite word, a tough conversation.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it was like, okay, as much as this is uncomfortable and brutal, even, it has to be had. And if it has to be had tonight, then damn it, we'll have it at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I guess the other takeaway for me was just I would not have a 3-hour argument.
Say the least.
I don't know how I could break it off into segments. I don't know how I
Rest,
could have shortened it. I
rest
don't know.
points,
Take a
rest
break, let's
points,
eat.
drink breaks.
I do
Yeah,
not know. But
absolutely.
that was exhausting.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, all too familiar.
Um,
Particularly the I'm trying to get something over to you, and at every stage you're battling me. And I think it's because you just don't want to hear what I'm trying to say. So you're going
mm,
to pick apart various things about me so you don't have to hear what I have to say, which is truly what this conversation is about.
mm.
So yeah, it was all very familiar and very exhausting. Uh, so Malcolm and Marie, you know, maybe talk to a third party.
All right. Well, well, this
So,
has been Gwen Girl.
and Renee, thank you
Happy.
for listening. Aha Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.